But we do see Judge Adams front and center,
Just like you said.
just like a clock. Here's Judge Adams.
Where you stopped. Go forward.
Found that school district area and bought our home and paid a lot more for our house because we weren't going to be spending money on private school. It was one of those, beep, again, right? Right. And we thought, Dunwoody has nice schools, there's always going to be families or people that are going to want to move there. And in fact, you could go back and look in the Dunwoody prior, because when we first moved in 2007-ish, 7.5, somewhere around there. When we first moved, they were redistricting. They started moving the school lines, and they cut Vanderlyn at Chambly Dunwoody, and then Manjet Court people were ending up going to Chestnut. I flipped my freaking lid, right? It ended up, and I made several phone calls, as I'm sure you can imagine, complaints, and I was new to Denver, so I didn't even know who to call or who to complain to. And they didn't know what they were doing. They were building that Dunwoody Elementary. Was it a full school? Was it a 4th and 5th grade? They had no idea at that time. Then they figured it out. And once they figured it out, I got put back in to Vanderbilt. Not that Chestnut's a bad school, but it's not why I moved there. I mean, I moved for a specific school. And who knows? And now they're redistricting. I can't even think about it right now. But they're redistricting a million places now, and we're annoyed. Russ and I have talked about it several times. You know, we spent $900-something thousand on this house, and actually got a decent deal on our decent deal for us. I had no real estate agent, so they knocked like $20,000 off the price. I was my own not surprising real estate agent. Okay. But I don't want to get this job, although now, you know, life is different, so I'm really doing it. But at the time, I didn't want to get this shit out of Vanderbilt.
Well, I'm just from what I've learned since Thursday, that you are going to be fine. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to handle it. You're going to be able to support your family. You're going to be able to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of eventually. You just got to have faith in yourself and faith that the rest of you are going to be with you.
I hear what you're saying. I know I've told you this several times, and I hear you keep telling me the same thing, but
I'll try not to.
well, safety's still a concern. Until we have this completely ridiculous answer that I don't understand, I do still feel unsafe. And sending my daughter back to school, or Ian back to family prep, or me, being outside is still very hard. And everyone's saying what you're saying. It was meant to be all of you, you'd all already be dead, or they don't make you say it.
I'm not going to tell you that anymore, because okay. You've heard it. There's no need to be that, to keep repeating it.
Right.
One of the ways I also think about it, almost helpful to me, is that this is akin to a terrorist act.
Right.
And one way to let the terrorists win is to stop doing your normal routine. Stop doing what makes you happy. And that you're letting them win. And that makes me angry. Because I am going to do everything in my power to make sure that these people don't get what they want. Take it for what it's worth.
You still understand that driving is that
You're scared.
the parking lot next door. It's not my man taking my doctor, which is too late.
If you weren't scared, I say that was weird.
And tell you that I have, actually, there's been no conversation yet, but I've expressed an interest in exploring security options for my family. Nothing's happened. But a friend of a friend said they may know a security firm, and I'm just telling you that my brother's colleagues of it. Just telling you.
Now, if you do end up getting somebody that's going to be there on a regular basis as a security firm or whatever the case might be, let me know.
I would, of course, do that.
Because we don't want to deal with the officer driving by there and say, why is this person? Right.
No, I get that. All right, well, what are we talking about? How did I got married? I don't know.
We were talking about you and Rusty. And you were right along with all the questions I was When, I'm sorry, what's the name of your first child? Your oldest? Sophia. How was the relationship between you and Rusty after Sophia was born?
All right, let me tell you that story. Sophia was hard to come by. Really hard. I had a miscarriage with you. She was slightly manufactured in the sense that I had to take extra drugs in order to, I know this, but in order to ovulate, because I evidently don't on a regular basis, which is never something I was worried about until I had children. I didn't. And right. See, I always made a joke that if I had known that I wasn't ovulating at the time, could have had more fun. I'm serious. That was a constant joke because every teenager I wasn't a teenager. I was 19, we were together and who wants to be pregnant? I didn't want to be pregnant at 19. I mean, I was too practical to be pregnant at 19. But I'm just saying, if I had known I wasn't able to get pregnant, anyway.
Then worth a little less worried.
Correct.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she was hard to come by. When I was pregnant with her, we were at a friend's wedding. I got food poisoning. I did 80% of the wedding. Can you imagine? It was like, Rusty and I were both in the hospital, as were a million other people in a lot of other cities. The brunch was in San Antonio. It was the Sunday brunch, and there was something in the water. Right? Maybe too close to Mexico. I have no idea. So I was pregnant, by only 2 months or so. 2 to 3 months, maybe. 3 months. I was very sick. There's a lot of worry I was going as a baby. I didn't. But something happened when I got that food poisoning. Sophia grew fine for some time inside. At about 6 months or so, 6.5 months, did your kids?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, when you go to the OB, when you're the obstetrician when you're pregnant, they measure your belly to make sure that the kid is growing, or they look in ultrasound. Yeah. And by 6.5 months, when they were measuring, I was getting fuzzy big, but somehow the area that she was in wasn't growing. And you can talk to my doctor about all of this. I'd be happy to give his name and release whatever it is if you want to corroborate, although I'm not sure that's right. At some point, my doctor made a decision that she'd be better out than in. So about 6 weeks early, before my due date, they induced labor. Labor was a piece of cake for me, maybe because she was so small. She was quite tiny. She didn't cry. There was a flock of people that flew in. And again, you haven't experienced this, but Northside Hospital, which is a baby factory, which I find actually to be a refreshing or reassuring thing, they have experts in every damn baby thing there, right? And they have people waiting outside in case and then they had to come in the room and help her breathe and all that stuff. Then I thought she was fine. But it turns out she couldn't regulate her temperature, so they took her to the NICU type place. This is the morning after she was born. She stopped breathing while she was there. They had to, whatever, put a bag in the face. We got her breathing again. And it was, I thought, the worst nightmare of my life. This works, but that was it. Rusty couldn't have been better. Rusty, we were there. She had stayed in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. Compared to the other kids who were there, all she had was an apnea nicole, which is the inability to breathe consistently. Or when you're supposed to, you hold your breath for too long, longer than 20 seconds. We took her home finally. But on heart monitor for about 6 months. It was a nightmare because those heart monitors, they go off by mistake sometimes. So the day after we got her home, the heart monitor went off. I thought she had stopped breathing. We were at Children's. They had to do a spinal tap on, 2.5-week-old. It was a total nightmare. And Rusty was depressed. I mean, he was a mess. I was a mess. We were exhausted. I was an exhausted mother. I was probably raising lunatic. Breastfeeding was a total nightmare for me. She was so small, she barely ate. It was like ridiculous. But he was always, he just...
You never felt the baby?
And he's been a great parent. We went to second father, Sophia, a great husband. I'm asking you about the Sophia period somehow, and not hers, right? Ian was easier to come by a little bit. They said sometimes you can kickstart your system and it's sort of whatever. A little bit easier. I didn't get food poisoning. He came out when he was supposed to, somewhat naturally. But Rusty was there. Rusty, I am not I need my sleep. Sleep and middle of the night, all the time. I poke him, get up, go get this crying child. Every time I go to place. Am I answering the question?
Now, while you were pregnant with that child, did Rusty get distant in any way?
Never. In fact, the opposite. Very much the opposite. I almost think he would have liked me pregnant at the time. In theory. Although I was a very healthy pregnant person. I look better pregnant than I do not pregnant. Just everything sort of glowy. But no distant. I think Rusty, though, constant stress of providing for his family, right? Always wanted the best, wanted more, but I don't think that's what you're asking me. But I'll just tell you, right, that this job thing was kind of a roller coaster, even through all of these times of having kids. And it was, it's one thing to be a couple of children and lose your job, or switch jobs, but when you have a kid, one, or even two, and then house payments and a million other things, right? He got pretty stressed about it.
Was he a traditionalist in the form that he thought that the male should be the provider, the primary provider, and the female in the family should be the secondary provider if she was a provider at home?
I'm sorry, can you answer that question?
Sure. A traditionalist, as in the husband or the father.
Right.
He's the one who financially supports the family, whereas the mother, the wife, the female
stays home and raises the children.
Stay home, raises the children. Or if they have a job, it's...
There'll be 3 more clips of 55 minutes approximately, and 1 more clip of 6 minutes.
Oh, that's fine as long.
Just to give the court.
No, just keep going. Forward.
secondary to the job?
I think that was sort of a wavering unknown, especially recently. I worked from out of the house for up until April, so it never came up. I had a job that I was doing. Either I or a nanny or someone was doing most of the house duties, or that's how it went. But he was always still a parent, and always took care of the children and gave them baths at night and snuggled with them at night and all of that. But I think once I left the home to do it like a go to office job, there was a period of time, right, where I think I wasn't sure whether he was thinking my job's more important than your job. But
He never whispered that to you?
it never like that. But in fact, he always said he's very supportive of me working for whatever I want to do. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this being the provider part, I think, is true. I think ultimately he wanted me to not feel the pressure of supporting the family. He wanted to be the one doing that. Let's keep talking about that. This past I don't know how many months it's been since April. 6 months? Right. Me starting a new job, trying to sort of make my way in that job. I love my job.
So you started at GE?
Correct.
April of last year?
No, this year. You want me to tell you that? How I got?
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
How was Wesley's time?
He was happy for me that I loved my job, but this was an adjustment period these past 6 months. Which is why it's one of these, we did not spend as much time together. I've been traveling. We've been struggling on who drives the kids, who doesn't in the morning. Like, I think, again, I never worked out of the house. I mean, I've never worked
Outside.
in an office structure. Right. I had a job, so that's sort of outside the house, but not, I sat in my office doing it. And I traveled to Boston rarely, every once in a while. And that's the thing, when I traveled to Boston, even the past 8 years, they took care of the kids. It's not something to shy away from. But I will tell you, the past 6 months, we were figuring it out. We hired,
This is a substantially better job.
Mine?
For GE.
For me.
In your work history, for you personally, GE was a definite step up.
That was the theory. That was the theory. And it had the potential. Once I started there and I saw how great I was at it, I could see myself building a career there. And before that, I was working at home so I could have a kid 1 or kid 2, and I thought it was important for me to sort of balance the being home. When this opportunity came, right. So, but my point is, there were ups and downs in the past couple of months. There were times, right, where, and in fact, there was a whole period in the summer where I was gone 1 or 2 weeks in a row, and he was responsible for taking them and picking them up every day. When I got home from that trip, he was an ass, right? I mean, he was like, because he couldn't even work then, and he was trying to find a job. And again, he wants to be the person making me feel like I don't have to have this job. And in that 2-week period where he was taking care of the kids, he couldn't look for a job, or the kids don't go to camp till 9:30, they have to pick up at 2:30. It's like, I mean, I know, I've been doing it, right? I get it. And it was new for him, okay? He never, again, I worked from home. There was no, he would definitely have picked up Sophie at school a couple times before, and had done week prep when she was at done week prep, if I was in Boston or whatever, but I was primarily the one doing those sort of traditional stay-at-home mom type duties. And he had never had to do them repeatedly in say, a 2 or 3 week span. And he was annoyed and yeah, he was, not annoyed at the children, because he actually, he had this conversation specifically where he said he loves taking the children, but 5 to 6 hours in a day is not enough working time. We talked that through. In fact, then we hired a new, and I think her name was Elizabeth, REDMON, a couple weeks back. She was a nanny. I have 2 girls that come to the house. She's the newest one. The other one has been was Ian's nanny since they came home to the house. Because I worked, again, I was an independent contractor. I don't get attorney fees, right? So Samantha Archer Wright, Samantha Archer Wright. She has been Ian's nanny since the beginning. She went back to nursing school, so her time she wasn't available all the time. And so over the summer, and that was another thing, we didn't really have any help in swimming. Rusty was unemployed, it was only my income. We were thinking we didn't have any money to hire any help. And when we talked about it, and he said, I don't know what time to look for a job. I don't know what time. We realized we just need to spend out of our savings and hire help, or else we were going to fight and keep annoying each other. And who's going to make dinner? And by the way, the hours between 4:30 and 7 are like a circus. We're becoming a circus in my house. I was coming home, he would pick up one, I would pick up the other, or someone would pick up both. Because we're starting when they get home. That's a very, exhausting situation.
This was before Rusty started the...
No, this is during. This all wasn't? This is all during. Correct. Because he met Neil in June. It didn't work seriously on that and had like a million other things going on which we can talk about. Once he made this offer to this mobile communications company, and it was rejected is a harsh word, but it just they said this is like a blown ball, forget it, we're not taking it. He said, I gotta go like pour my heart into something. I can't sort of keep driving myself crazy trying to do tiny businesses. And Neil and him had been working tiny bits together up to that point. But once the mobile communications thing didn't go through, he said, I'm throwing myself into starting something, and that was it. And that's why it's been so successful.
Okay, when did he make that decision to... I can't remember.
Start mobile communications.
The crash the overfall.
Discovery. That was in April.
This year.
Yeah.
So April of this year is when he left Discovery, and the family made the decision, you need to go do your business.
You mean he and I made it? What the decision is, I think I said this in the other room, he can't work for anybody anymore. We've tried all these times for him to work with other people, but he has some grand ideas that not everybody likes to listen to.
And that's about the same time that you started at GE.
Right, and that it was very bizarre in the sense that, and you can go back and look at my records of my GE, but I received the offer from GE sometime in March, early March. We went on I had a cruise with my parents that we were going on, and I didn't want to like start work and then use vacation day and then go back. So I said I'm going to start April 12, 15, something in that week there. And Rusty had been very unhappy at Discovery. And part of me taking the job was that we saw it coming. Either he was going to leave or they were going to fire him. It was one of the two. And I didn't really have a job because my project, I think I explained this to you already, but my projects with Harvard Business School Publishing has sort of ended as of December, January. So I put my resume out there and did a couple of interviews. I wasn't even sure that I wanted to stay home and full time, which I realized wasn't my personality, although I was fighting it. I thought it was, but it wasn't. And then this GE thing came about while Rusty was still really unhappy. And by the way, he had we've talked about this too, but Discovery Point sort of didn't exactly provide health benefits. So we were self-insured. They gave him a little bit of money to pay for that health insurance every month, but it wasn't for full, family health insurance. So it was new challenge, health benefits, a steady paycheck, while he goes and, searches for a business to buy, not to start, to buy. And he and Brian Adams, whose name I'm sure you've heard also a million times, he was just a mentor for Rusty initially. He met Brian from Harold Salt. Harold and Brian, I think, just are business buddies, and Harold will have to explain that to you. Brian has bought and sold, I think, several companies. Probably has a little more money than we do. I actually have no idea how much money he has.
Let's refocus the house.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, this is
No. I'm sorry. I forgot where we were. Go ahead.
That's okay. So, GE you the job, we want to give you the job in March.
Oh, right. Yes, and I said I'm not starting until April. And by the way, this is important, I think, for you to know, this goes along the line of questioning. The agreement of my, not really
With you and me.
right, and it wasn't like a written down agreement, but with me and like the HR lady at the time, and my upcoming boss, whoever it was. Now I was very hesitant to take the job because I've been working from home all this time, so like jump from home to 5 days in an office, whatever. It's like I was very torn as I told you, being home or not. And I worked out this thing, can I work remotely some days, 2 days a week at home? Can I work 7:30 to 3:30 so I can be home with my kids? And they never had a problem with it. I didn't necessarily, I started really getting excited about my job and really got into my job. Some days that schedule happened, some days it didn't happen. I worked a lot at night to make up for the time I wasn't there. I did end up traveling because I was going to see that people at a couple different sites that work on a team, plus the software group has several sites, and it's important to understand what this software needs to do in order for me to do my job. Anyways, so that was that is the story. Go ahead.
GE gave the family, specifically you,
Okay.
the first real stable full benefit package. Because
Sure. Yeah. Yes.
while moving around, Rusty had done the partial benefits from
Right.
Discovery Point. You working as an independent contractor.
Yep.
But this was the family, specifically yours, first real opportunity for stable benefits, stable paycheck.
Right.
You can plan stuff with it.
Yeah, that was sort of yeah. Problem is, we bought our home and homes with both of us working and bringing in salaries. So these past couple months were, I mean, we're like, but I don't get paid a ton. But yes, I'm sure that I thought of that when I took the job. I'm sure that was one of the reasons. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I hasn't ended up that was the reason, but yeah, I think that was appealing, a stable benefits type job. And I hadn't been in corporate America before, and I thought, give it a try. I don't like it. I can leave. At the time, I had no other options with Harvard Business School or Harvard Business School Publishing. And until that came back around, which by the way did recently, they called me and wanted me to do a small project. That's a huge gap in time for me to not work, and it turns out now Rusty to not work. And we knew that was sort of coming. Either it was going to quit, or they were going to fire him. So I took that job with all that in mind.
Did you take the job after discussing with Rusty, or telling Rusty that, let me rephrase that. Did you take the job with the intention of Rusty leaving Discovery Point?
No, because we thought every day was, we hope it'll work out.
Okay.
So no, not necessarily, but it would have given us the freedom freedom is a very big word to say, because again, our expenses starting to get almost close to exceed what I'm going to get right now. But certainly, options.
When you started at GE, how soon after that did Rusty leave Discovery?
Well, it wasn't a leave. They came into it.
Did his job end at Discovery for whatever the reason?
It happens the first day I started at GE, I believe. Oh, it was either the week. I honestly don't remember. I'm going to have to look back. Well, I'll go through his emails and you can probably tell me more. Or I could look through my Yahoo account and probably find
Right about the same time?
a week. It could have been the same day, or it could have. But I accepted the offer while he was still working at Discovery.
Okay.
It was just somewhat coincidental. Well, of course that was me. That the day I started work, he got laid off, and then a week later I started. But again, I accepted so long after. Oh, you know why? We went on a cruise. This is in March of this year. He got fired like a week later. So we could look back and see when I went to cruise and look at my calendar. He got fired like a week later. Also goes to the beginning of April. I think we went to cruise the end of March. I don't know. We don't know for sure. I'm not It's not, and what we have to do is look at my Yahoo calendar, only because I have in there proof. Does my phone work in here?
It might.
I don't think, but I don't think I have my Yahoo calendar. I can find access on my laptop. I don't even know how to access it in here. Okay, well maybe we should. Anyways, but the point is that when the cruise came back, things were no better at Discovery Point, and it was within a matter of weeks, 1 to 2. I started and he got fired, or it was that mutual agreement that he would leave.
Yes. How long after him ending with Discovery Point and making the decision of going full bore into an entrepreneurial...
Into Star Boys now. Star Boys. Not purchasing a company. Because that's how
that was a major change in mind and the concept of what he's trying to do.
Yes, because for the months of the end of April and May and June, and I think even like a week or two in July, until the mobile communications deal went to the toilet, and again, you have folders now with the dates, I don't. I need the emails. All that time he was looking at a bazillion different companies to buy. So it's purchasing an existing company or sort of a startup. Star Boys is a startup.
So how soon after leaving Discovery to
Full-blown Star Boys now.
Star Boys now?
Perhaps a couple weeks in April, May, June, and a couple weeks in July. So that's almost just like 3 months. 2.5 to 3 months. Yes, I'm thinking it's in July. Now again, he met Neil the beginning of June, like the first weekend. I told Gary this. Do you want to know last weekend? Okay. And they had coffee and breakfast a couple of times through June and July, and where the ideas were sort of forming, and what could Rusty do, and it just had legs. That was all happening. Rusty did a million things at the same time. This mobile communications deal doesn't take all your time. I mean, buying it. Anyways, that's that. But once that went down the toilet, he said, I can't keep sort of doing this go down the toilet route. The Star Boys nothing seems exciting and fun. I'm going to just really focus my energy on that. Plus, there are not a lot of businesses for sale right now. People don't want to sell, so they don't want to get very involved in business.
Okay. Since between when he left Discovery to he made the final commitment to go full on to Starlight.
Yep.
What was how was the stress with finances or the discussion with her? How what was going on there? Was
Finances?
Was family support? Because he didn't have an income.
Right? Yeah, but I did.
You just started.
True.
So,
There was no issue in finances at that point. You're talking dollars? $100?
I'm talking about just running the household and all that, because now you have the primary income. I'm going back to his concept of being the primary breadwinner for the family.
Yeah.
You are now the primary breadwinner. He doesn't have an income. He doesn't have a definite
Job.
direction of
Right.
what he's doing.
Right.
What happened during that time?
He took on most responsibilities for dropping the kids out and picking them up.
Is that where the argument started? Or where he started being, you said he started being an athlete on the way?
That one trip in July.
Okay.
May, June, you're right, he didn't have a ton to do, so there weren't arguments about it necessarily. There was a comment here or there about it, but it wasn't an argument.
What were the comments like?
It was, I only jump with the kids at 9:15, so camp starts at 9:30, and I can't seem to get enough done between 9:45 and 3-something when I pick them up, or, in that period. And looking for these companies, you just couldn't get it all done, he felt. And I said, well, but I have to do this job, right? I have to do this job. I can't drop understood it that particular point, but I'm not going to tell you that there wasn't a conversation about it. There was never tons of yelling about it. In July, there may have been an argument about it, because I came home, I feel like I'm working hard, right? And I know he was working hard too, because this is when the Dark Voicemail thing was starting to ramp up, and that was the issue, right? And so there were arguments.
How many of the arguments you had?
We don't get anything.
What was all voice?
All of us. All on thing. Right. We yell, but nothing. Actually, not very loudly. Both children, maybe were not stupid. Yeah. I'm a good yeller. I think he didn't yell at the time. He could raise the voice, I'm sure. But not was raising his voice to me, he was raising his voice out of frustration. And what was the question? Okay.
Then from the point of the decision going into
Starbucks now. Right.
Till Thursday, what was the move during that time?
Yeah. Well, once we sort of, once he communicated that he didn't have a lot of time, I was frustrated, right? Because again, still I'm the one having the job, and there's no actual money. So, you gotta balance your priorities. That's when we hired Alyssa. We did argue, but then we made an agreement and sort of said mercy and said we need more help in the house so that we can actually sit down at dinner time. And I'm not responsible for making dinner when I want to make dinner. He's not responsible for making dinner because it's just not something he ever wanted us to do. So we hired more help. And for the past couple of weeks, it's been meaning the stress.
You had some issues, you had some responsibilities removed from you that freed up a little bit more time.
That's right. That's the right way to say it.
Okay, now, you have mentioned a few times that
All right, Mr. Flake, I'm gonna have Mr. Pasquale stop it at this point. You can check the number where he's stopping it, and we'll resume after I give him this break to make sure we play it in its entirety.
Yes, sir.
So if y'all wanna check the numbers, you can do that at this point in time while I'm giving the ladies and gentlemen these instructions. Ladies and gentlemen, you can leave your notepads there in the jury room, turn them face down. Let me give you these instructions. Do not discuss the case or allow anyone to discuss the case with you. At this point in time, I need you and all of you to keep an open mind. The case is still ongoing. When I release you for this break, do not remain upon the floor because I don't want you to interact with anyone you should not interact with or hear anything you should not hear. If you do decide to have a meal or a lunch or whatever you want to call it, here at a restaurant in Decatur, do not sit near anyone who may be discussing the case or allow anyone to sit next to you who may be discussing the case because you should not be hearing anything at this point in time or discussing any case with anyone. Do not read or look at any media coverage pertaining to this case. Do not go upon the internet and do any research about this case. Do not blog about this case while it's ongoing. Do not attempt to go to any location that may or may not have been made reference to. All the evidence will come to you in the form of sworn testimony and any evidence that's introduced during the course of the trial and anything that's introduced, and you have at the appropriate time. You're more than welcome to bring something to snack and or eat with you during the afternoon session. Do not consume any alcoholic beverages during the lunch break. Deputy Garrett will return to you your cell phones and iPhones at this point in time. You can check your messages, but do not text or email or communicate anything about the case at this point in time. Just put them in the off position when you return. As I indicated earlier, the lawyers and the parties cannot talk and interact with you. I don't ever want you to think that the lawyers are being rude or disrespectful to you. We're going to, on this particular case, we're going to be on recess until 1:30, then we'll resume at that point in time, all right? We're on recess till 1:30. All rise.
Okay, welcome back. We continue 11 Alive's continuing coverage of the trial of Andrea Sneiderman. Lunch break time on this Thursday. I'm joined by Stephen Burns. Stephen, we appreciate you being with us, and sure. Stephen's going to be with us all afternoon long, as well as our coverage at 6 and 7 o'clock on 11 Alive. And